First Contact Protocol. The crystal spires of Marathi Prime had stood for 10,000 years, their surfaces catching the light of twin suns and scattering rainbows across the peaceful valleys below. Today, those same spires crumbled under the weight of plasma bombardment, their ancient song silenced by the roar of alien warships. Elder Seraphim pressed his elongated fingers against the viewing portal of the emergency bunker, watching his civilization die. The Marathi had never known war. Their society had evolved past conflict millennia ago, choosing instead to nurture art, science, and philosophy. They were gardeners of knowledge, cultivators of beauty, shepherds of wisdom. They were not warriors. The Bozya Korthax Empire cared nothing for such distinctions. Elder, whispered Counselor Lyrian, her voice trembling like wind through crystal chimes. The southern cities have fallen silent. The northern territories report massive casualties. Our defensive satellites have been neutralized. Seraphim closed, his eyes feeling the weight of his people's extinction pressing down upon him like a collapsed star. The Korthax had appeared 3 cycles ago, their massive black ships emerging from hyperspace like hungry shadows. They had demanded submission, resources, and servitude. When the Marathi had tried to negotiate, tried to offer alternatives, the invaders had simply begun destroying everything in sight. How many evacuation ships escaped? Seraphim asked, though he dreaded the answer. 47 vessels carrying approximately 12,000 souls, Lyrian replied. Less than 1% of our population. The bunker shook as another orbital strike hammered the surface above them. Emergency lighting flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls covered with artistic masterpieces that would soon be nothing but ash and memory. Elder, came another voice. Technician Norvac approached with urgency written across his pale features. The quantum communicator is still operational. We could send a distress signal across the galaxy, though. He paused, uncertainty clouding his expression. Though what, Norvac? Though we have no idea who might receive it. The signal would reach dozens of star systems, hundreds of potential civilizations. Some might be worse than the Korthax. Some might not care at all. Seraphim looked around the bunker at the last remnants of Marathi leadership. Scientists, artists, philosophers, teachers, all of them brilliant in their own fields. None of them equipped for the brutal reality now facing their species. They were gardeners trying to fight a wildfire with watering cans. Prepare the transmission, Seraphim decided. If we are to die, let us at least try to warn others of what comes. Norvac's fingers danced across the quantum communication array, a device originally designed for peaceful scientific exchange with distant civilizations. Now it would serve as their species' death cry. Signal ready, Elder. Broad spectrum, maximum range. It will reach every inhabited system within 500 light-years. Seraphim stepped before the recording apparatus, straightening his robes. Despite the futility of appearances, he began to speak, his words carrying across space toward unknown listeners. To any beings who receive this transmission, I am Elder Seraphim of the Marathi Collective. Our worlds are under attack by the Korthax Empire, a species that shows no mercy, takes no prisoners, and leaves nothing but death in their wake. They consume civilizations like fire consumes dry grass. If you are peaceful peoples like ourselves, flee now while you still can. If you are warriors, know that the Korthax possess superior numbers and technology. We estimate their fleet strength at over 3,000 vessels, each more powerful than anything in our archives. This may be our final transmission. Remember, us not as we die, but as we lived, in peace, in hope, in the light of knowledge. May your stars burn bright when ours have gone dark. The transmission ended. Now there was nothing to do but wait, either for salvation or extinction. 700 light-years away, in a system the Marathi had never heard of, orbiting a yellow star around a blue-green world that most of the galaxy considered too dangerous. For civilized life, Dr. Sarah Chen spit out her coffee. Are you certain about this translation? She asked, wiping liquid from her workstation at Luna Base's monitoring facility. Her colleague, Dr. James Park, ran the alien language through their computers for the 3rd time. Positive. The linguistic patterns are consistent. Someone out. There is asking for help against something called the Korthax Empire. Sarah stared at the message displayed on her screen. As Earth's lead xenolinguist, she had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. First contact with an alien civilization. She had imagined diplomatic greetings, cultural exchanges, perhaps even invitations to join some galactic community. She had not imagined a desperate plea for survival. "Have you informed Admiral Kane?" she asked. "He's on his way. Sarah, there's something else you need to see." James pulled up a secondary screen showing what appeared to be a vast database of information that had been attached to the Marathi transmission. They included their entire galactic survey archive. "Look at this. Entry." Sarah leaned forward, reading the text that had been automatically translated by their systems. Her eyes widened as she processed the information. Sol system, third planet designation, Earth. Classification, extreme hazard, Deathworld. Inhabitant species, human. Galactic threat level, minimal. Notes, primitive technological development. Aggressive tendencies noted but tempered by interspecies cooperation. Recommendation, avoid contact. Inhabitants considered Class D prey species by most galactic civilizations. Survival on homeworld. Indicates unusual hardiness, but lack of advanced weaponry suggests limited defensive capabilities. Prey species? Sarah laughed, though there was no humor in it. "They think we're prey?" Before James could respond, the facility's main doors hissed open. Admiral Marcus Kane strode into the communications center, his weathered face set in grim lines. At 62, Kane had served in 3 major conflicts and countless smaller engagements. He understood war in ways that most humans, fortunately, never would. "Show me everything," Kane commanded without preamble. Sarah quickly briefed him on the Marathi transmission, their location, and the galactic database that painted humanity as little more than clever animals living on a world too dangerous for civilized beings. Kane listened in silence, his gray eyes never leaving the translated messages. When Sarah finished, he stood quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. "Admiral?" James prompted. "What are your orders? How long would it take to reach their system?" Sarah consulted her calculations. "With our fastest ships using, the new Alcubierre drives approximately 3 weeks. And our fleet strength? The Europa Defense Force has been expanded significantly since the Mars Colony Wars. We can field approximately 200 ships of various classes." Kane nodded slowly. "Less than 1/10 the size of this Korthax force." "Sir," Sarah interjected, "perhaps we should consider diplomatic solutions. We could try contacting other galactic civilizations, forming some kind of alliance." "Doctor?" Kane interrupted gently. "Look at what happened to the Marathi. They were peaceful. They tried diplomacy. Now they're dying." He paused, his expression hardening. "Besides, according to this database, we're not considered worth allying with. We're prey." The Admiral turned toward the communication station. "Open a channel to Earth Defense Command. Emergency authorization code Alpha 77. Within minutes, Kane was connected to the highest levels of Earth's government. The conversation was brief and decisive. Humanity's leaders, upon learning of the galactic perspective on their species, reached a unanimous conclusion. "Prep the fleet," Kane ordered. "Full deployment, every ship we can spare." "Sir," James asked hesitantly, "what do we tell the crews?" Kane smiled for the first time since entering the facility. It was not a pleasant expression. "Tell them we've received a distress call from a peaceful species under attack by an empire that considers humans to be prey animals. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what prey can do when it decides to hunt." Over the next 72 hours, Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock. The UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful battleship, was designated as flagship. Captain Elena Rodriguez, one of Earth's most decorated pilots, would command the vessel under Admiral Kane's direct oversight. The fleet that assembled beyond Luna's orbit was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Where most civilizations built elegant ships optimized for specific roles, human vessels looked like exactly what they were: weapons forged by a species that had spent millennia fighting everything from each other to their planet's hostile environment. The ships were angular, aggressive, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons that other species might consider primitive. Railguns that used magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Nuclear missiles with multiple stages and smart guidance systems. Plasma cannons that turned matter into superheated death. Point defense systems that could track and destroy hundreds of targets simultaneously. But perhaps most importantly, the ships were crewed by humans. Beings who had evolved on a world that tried to kill them daily, who had learned to cooperate with former enemies when faced with greater threats, who possessed something that most galactic civilizations had bred out of themselves over millennia of peaceful existence: the ability to fight dirty when survival was at stake. As the fleet prepared for its jump to hyperspace, Admiral Kane addressed the crews across all ships. Today we received a message from a species called the Mirathi. They're dying, killed by an empire that sees conquest as their right and mercy as weakness. According to galactic records, we humans are considered a prey species, primitive animals not worth the attention of civilized beings. The Korthax Empire that's exterminating the Mirathi has never encountered us, never tested us, never learned what humans do when someone threatens the innocent. They're about to get an education. All ships, prepare for hyperspace translation. It's time to introduce ourselves to the galaxy. The human fleet vanished in flashes of twisted spacetime, racing toward a distant system where an ancient evil was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones that everyone mistakes for prey. Predator versus predator. Supreme Commander Vorkath stood 8 feet tall on 4 muscular legs, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming black under the bridge lights of his flagship, the consuming darkness. His species, the Korthax, had dominated this sector of the galaxy for 3 centuries by following one simple principle: overwhelming, force applied without mercy. The Mirathi had been no different from dozens of other civilizations the Korthax had conquered. Peaceful, technologically advanced in useless ways and completely unprepared for real warfare. Their crystalline cities made satisfying sounds when they shattered under orbital bombardment. Commander, his tactical officer, Sub-Commander Therix, approached with the nervous gait that subordinates displayed when bearing unexpected news. We are detecting hyperspace signatures at the system's edge. Vorkath's 4 eyes focused on the displays. Mirathi reinforcements? I thought we had eliminated their entire fleet. Negative, Commander, the signatures are unknown. Configuration suggests approximately 200 vessels of various sizes. 200 ships. Vorkath felt a familiar surge of anticipation. Perhaps some galactic coalition had finally assembled the courage to challenge Korthak's expansion. Such resistance would be crushed naturally, but it might provide more interesting combat than the pathetic Mirathi had offered. Signal the fleet. Form attack formation Beta 7. Launch all fighter squadrons. Let us greet our visitors appropriately. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their angular ships immediately beginning evasive maneuvers, as sensors detected the massive Korthax presence. Admiral Kane studied the tactical display from the bridge of the UES Defiance, his experienced eye taking in the enemy formation. 3,000 ships, just like the Mirathi said, he muttered. Captain Rodriguez, signal all ships to maintain defensive formation. Launch our fighters and prepare to— Admiral, interrupted Communications Officer Lieutenant Torres. We're receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship. On screen, the main display filled with the image of Supreme Commander Vorkath, his predatory features arranged in what might have been amusement. When he spoke, his voice carried the casual arrogance of a being accustomed to absolute victory. Unknown vessels, you have entered Korthax space without permission. I am Supreme Commander Vorkath of the Korthax Empire. Identify yourselves and state your business before I decide whether your deaths will be quick or prolonged. Admiral Kane stepped forward, his weathered face displaying no emotion. I am Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Defense Force. We received a distress signal from the Mirathi Collective. You will cease your attack on their worlds and withdraw from this system immediately. Vorkath's translator worked for several seconds before conveying the human's words. When understanding dawned, the alien commander began to laugh, a sound like grinding metal. Terran? You are from the Deathworld Sol 3? The prey species that lives on the toxic planet? Vorkath's amusement was genuine. I have studied your species in our databases. Primitive chemical propulsion, metal projectile weapons, no energy shields worthy of the name. You fight with fire and explosives like barbarians. We fight with whatever works, Kane replied calmly. Indeed. Well, primitive Deathworlders, you have shown admirable courage in coming here to die for strangers. I will make your ending swift as a reward for such dedication. All ships, attack formation. Commander, Thyrix interrupted urgently. The human ships are scattering, they're not maintaining formation. Vorkath looked at his tactical display in confusion. The human fleet had broken apart like a shattered mirror, individual ships racing in seemingly random directions. Some dove toward the system's asteroid belt, others accelerated toward the gas giant's ring system, still others disappeared behind Marathi Prime's larger moon. What are they doing? Vorkath demanded. This is no battle formation I recognize. Perhaps they are fleeing, suggested Thyrix. But Admiral Kane was not fleeing. He was doing something the Korthax had never encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. Adapting. All ships execute Plan Gamma, Kane transmitted. Remember, they expect us to fight like civilized beings. Show them how Deathworlders really do battle. Captain Rodriguez smiled grimly as she received her orders. The UES Defiance, along with 12 other heavy cruisers, accelerated toward the asteroid belt. Behind them, the Korthax fleet pursued in perfect formation, their ships moving like a disciplined army. That discipline would be their weakness. The first surprise came when the human ship Edinburgh detonated a series of nuclear mines it had deployed in the asteroid field. The explosion sent massive chunks of rock careening toward the pursuing Korthax vessels at tremendous velocity. While the alien ship's energy shields could stop directed energy weapons, they were not designed to handle multi-ton asteroids moving at orbital velocities. 6 Korthax destroyers were smashed to debris in the first few seconds. Impossible, Vorkath roared. They turned asteroids into weapons. But the humans were just getting started. The destroyer Thermopylae had hidden behind Marathi Prime's moon and now emerged with its entire missile complement targeted at the Korthax rearguard. The primitive nuclear warheads tore through energy shields that had been designed to stop elegant energy weapons, not crude atomic explosions. In the gas giant's rings, Captain Sarah Kim of the heavy cruiser Incheon had spent the last 10 minutes using her ship's mining lasers to superheat pockets of ice and gas. When the Korthax squadron arrived, they found themselves flying into a cloud of superheated plasma that overloaded their sensors and left them blind. The human fighters emerged from the plasma cloud like metallic wasps, their railguns spitting, depleted uranium projectiles that punched through Korthax hulls with contemptuous ease. Sir, Thyrix called out, his voice now carrying genuine fear. We've lost over 400 ships in the last 10 minutes. Their tactics, they're not fighting according to any known protocols. Vorkath studied the tactical display with growing unease. The humans weren't trying to win a traditional space battle. They were hunting his fleet like predators, using the environment as a weapon, turning every asteroid, every moon, every gas cloud into a tool of war. They fight like animals, he growled. No, sir, came a new voice. Navigation Officer Kylix had been monitoring human communications. They fight like humans. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Kane watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. His ships were outnumbered 15-1, but the Korthax had made a critical error. They had underestimated their opponent so completely that they hadn't bothered to study human combat doctrine. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez reported, the Yorktown and Constitution have successfully deployed their special packages near the enemy flagship. Kane nodded. The special packages were humanity's newest weapon, AI-guided missiles carrying antimatter warheads. The Korthax had never encountered antimatter weapons because most civilized species considered them too dangerous to manufacture. Humans, being from a death world where everything was dangerous, had a different perspective on acceptable risk. Detonate. On my mark, Kane ordered. The antimatter explosions were visible from 3 star systems away. 12 Korthax capital ships, including 2 of their super dreadnoughts, simply ceased to exist. Supreme Commander Vorkath felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Doubt. His fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was being systematically destroyed by a force 1/10 its size. The humans fought without honor, without rules, without any consideration for proper military conduct. They fought to win. "Sir," Theryx reported, his voice barely above a whisper, "we're receiving transmission from several of our damaged vessels. They report that human boarding parties they're not taking prisoners." Vorkath's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "The humans are boarding our ships and fighting hand to hand. Our soldiers are trained for warfare, but the humans, they move like predators. They hunt in packs, they show no fear of death. Our crews are requesting permission to abandon ship rather than face them in close combat." For the first time in his career, Supreme Commander Vorkath considered the unthinkable: retreat. But before he could give the order, new contacts appeared on his sensors. The surviving Marathi evacuation ships had returned to their homeworld, carrying thousands of refugees who had witnessed their civilization's destruction. But they weren't alone. Somehow, impossibly, they had convinced other species to join them. Civilizations that the Korthax had terrorized but never fully conquered. Species that had been waiting for someone to show them that the Empire could be defeated. "Admiral Kane," came a transmission from the lead Marathi vessel. Elder Zeraphim's image appeared on the screen, and for the first time in days he was smiling. "We have brought friends." The coalition fleet that emerged from hyperspace was composed of dozens of different species, hundreds of ships of wildly varying designs. They should have been impossible to coordinate, impossible to command effectively. But they all had one thing in common. They had seen the humans fight, and they had learned that predators could be defeated by prey that refused to run. Supreme Commander Vorkath watched his tactical display as his fleet was surrounded on all sides. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had united dozens of species against a common enemy, not through diplomacy or negotiation, but by proving that victory was possible. "All ships," Vorkath transmitted, his voice heavy with the weight of 3 centuries of Korthax dominance coming to an end. "Prepare to withdraw." "Sir?" Theryx couldn't hide his shock. "We're retreating?" "We are reassessing our strategic position," Vorkath replied, unwilling to speak the word that had never been part of Korthax vocabulary before this day. As the remains of the Korthax fleet limped toward the hyperspace jump point, Admiral Kane opened a channel to all coalition ships. "This is Admiral Kane to all vessels. The Marathi homeworld is secure. The Korthax Empire has been driven from this system. To our new friends and allies, welcome to the coalition of free worlds. To any Korthax ship still monitoring this frequency, spread the word throughout your empire. Prey animals don't always run. Sometimes they fight back, and sometimes the prey turns out to be the better predator." In the months that followed, the Battle of Marathi Prime became legend throughout the galaxy. The Korthax Empire, suddenly finding itself facing coordinated resistance from dozens of species they had terrorized, began to fragment. Some Korthax worlds sued for peace. Others fell to rebellions by their enslaved populations. But perhaps most importantly, the Galactic database was updated. Humanity's entry now read, Classification, Apex Predator. Threat level extreme. Recommendation, Alliance strongly advised, never underestimate. Elder Zeraphim stood in the rebuilt crystal gardens of Marathi Prime, watching human children play. Alongside young Marathi and the rainbow light of the twin suns, the crystal spires sang their ancient songs once more, but now they were joined by the laughter of a dozen different species, who had learned that the strongest bonds are forged not in peace, but in the fire of shared struggle. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous hunters are the ones everyone mistakes for prey. And sometimes when prey decides to fight back, they discover they were never prey at all. They were just predators who hadn't been properly motivated yet. The stars burned a little brighter that day, illuminated by the light of species who had found strength in unity and courage in the example of the small blue world that everyone had underestimated. Humanity had introduced itself to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same.